You're listening to a download from the outdoorstation.co.uk.
Number 274.
Hi everybody and welcome to podcast number 274 on the Outdoor Station. Yes, it's hard to believe there are 273 behind me, but once I've done the sums and added up what I've recorded on the Backpacking Light and also the Outdoor Station, this is where we are, 274. So we'll start numbering. Now, the reason for numbering is because the date aspect tends to get lost a bit and people get a bit confused about which one was produced when they're talking or sending emails to me and so on. So we thought we'd go for a new numbering system. We'd go for a new sound. We go for some new idents and little jingle things to just remind people who we are and what we're doing. And, you know, we do have a million listeners around the world now. We are having well over 3,000 downloads a day of the podcasts. So we thought we'd just up our game a bit and make a bit of a sharper presentation. And in line with doing that, we're also now on Facebook. A lot of people using Facebook for social networking. So if you want to look at the Outdoors Station as a group on Facebook, you can see the information about the latest releases there. And we're sort of starting conversations, invited conversations and feedback and suggestions and so on, because the system we've got running at the moment doesn't really allow that unless you email us, of course, and you can always email us or phone us, and now Facebook. So we'll give you all the details to do with that. Now, talking of which, we have been getting a few emails from people who have been very kindly saying how much they've enjoyed the TGO 2009 series. Of course, I couldn't have done this without the help of Shirley or Andy, and it's been quite a few weeks' worth of work. But to be honest, it was a pleasure to put it together, and I quite enjoyed the final result, and so have a lot of people. So I'm quickly going to read a few notes here from people who've written in. One of which is John Hess, but John, you'll know, is actually featured on the podcast a couple of times, walking with Shirley, and he's saying, I don't do Facebook, and I don't see a feedback page on the Outdoor Station. There's info at the Outdoor Station. However, he does say some nice things. Well, I've only got up to day 5, and I have to say the podcasts are great. I emailed Shirley yesterday to congratulate her on how well she comes across, and it did occur me to email you too. I've been surprised that there haven't been any comments on the TGO challenge board. Actually, you're not the only one there, but I think we've all got used to the podcast now. When something is consistently good, it's hard to keep praising it. The only thing I can think of saying is what I said to Shirley, that her voice adds a whole new dimension to the podcast. Not only is she really good at doing interviews, but her female voice next to the male voices somehow makes a difference. You really feel you're somewhere else when you switch from Bob or Andy to Shirl, and I think that works really well. I presume by that you mean in the pub where Shirley seems to be found, or somewhere where there's food. Another one from Stephen Potter. Congratulations, Bob, Rose, Andy and Shirley on a hugely entertaining series of podcasts from this year's edition of the TGO Challenge. I've listened to them all, and what a tease keeping the interview of Colin Ibbotson till last. Once again, thanks a lot. No, thank you, Steve. David Alban. He also features, as you know, in the podcast. You've been listening to them. Hi, Bob and Rose. I just listened to TGOC 09 podcast 6 and 7, and I particularly liked the bit in part 6 at Dalwhinnie that went, a bath we shared with David, not literally. Aha, nudge, nudge. Glad that got explained. Ha ha. Many thanks indeed for sharing. Really enjoyed listening in, and thanks for your hard work. Again, thank you, David, for your contribution. And he also says hi to Beth, who's disappeared off to Croatia, actually. And she's making her own podcasts. I don't know, set these girls off, they do wild things. Anyway, Paul Rigby. Hi, Paul. Excellent. The podcast's a really great way to spend a daily commute. Thanks very much. No, again, thank you, Paul. One from Australia, from Peter Grant, who does the Tasmanian Overland Track, which we've mentioned before, which is quite interesting, and it's nice to hear a different outdoor experience. Good day, Bob, Andy and Co. I'm still enjoying listening to your podcast as I walk to work. It must be 3 years since I I first found them, and I've enjoyed them ever since. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Peter, and best of luck with your series of podcasts as well. One from Scotland. Hi Bob, it's Gordon here, Gordon Scott from the Isle of Tiree. Just to say I'm loving the TGO Challenge series so much that I might do it myself next year. Well, you're very near, you might as well, Gordon. In April I trekked to Everest Base Camp, not bad for a 53-year-old born-again walker runner, so I should be able to do the TGO. Or if I can learn to navigate. Have you ever thought of going with Shirley? She could do with some help. Anyway, all the very best and well done with the outdoor station. It just gets better and better. Thanks, Gordon. And a couple here from the US. Mark Alvarez. Hi Bob, bravo on the TGO Challenge podcast. Fantastic and really useful. I have some idea of all the work that went into them, and I'm very grateful. Many thanks to you, Andy, Shirley and all. And our final one, again from the US, is a guy called Chuck Merkel. Wonderful! I've played them through twice, a variety of perspective, lots of details, almost like being there. I am located in northeastern Ohio and have been listening to you for years, firstly on the backpacking light side and now here, and I enjoy the variety. The clarity and the quality of the recordings is exceptional. Well, thank you very much indeed, Chuck, and you can find him at twchikers.com. So thank you guys, and thanks for everybody's taking the time to write in. Really appreciate it. Anyway, let's get on with this particular show. We've got 3 interviews for you. One is from Andy, who spoke to somebody at the travel show about going to Latin America. As we've now discovered, the barbecue summer has been cancelled, so let's go somewhere and do something. So we find out what's going on with the company called Last Frontiers, and we'll hear from them shortly. I speak to James Howard from the Vale Imaging Group. He runs training courses for photographers or potential photographers, and there seems to be quite a few at the moment that I know socially, certainly taking that up more as a full-time aspect to earn some money. And our European correspondent, Roman Ackel, you see, we can't do it without our associates here, is just back from Friedrichshafen. We didn't make it this year, but Roman did, and in typical German efficient style, he's managed to take photographs, write a blog, and also do a pile of interviews for us as well. And he speaks to Carol Macdermot from Lightwave regarding a new ultralight backpack. Anyway, more of that later. First, back to Andy. Now, Andy, as he was speaking to the guys at Ed Mills at Last Frontiers, is always a very popular destination for people who want to customise their holiday. There's a lot going on there, but their own package, put their own package together, of course. So if you're planning a trip to Latin America, Last Frontiers looks like a good place to start.
Online.
On demand.
And always available.
You're listening to the Outdoors Station.
That's, well, fantastic. Thank you very much. That's what I like to think. I think the key thing is being tailor-made, that we obviously start most of our itineraries from scratch, so we can have a chat to each client, find out exactly what their interests are, be it wildlife, be it history, archaeology, even the times they've got to travel, flexibility, their interests, and slowly build an itinerary, build an experience for them.
So there's a kind of conversation that can happen over a period of time, really, that allows you to get to know the kind of things people are interested in and suggest the right kind of options for them.
No, exactly that. We don't have any sort of off-the-shelf products, and to be totally honest with you, all our trips generally take a lot of sort of correspondence to get it exactly right. So there's lots of bouncing back of ideas of what about this, yes, but how about this, and flights and all this sort of thing. So, we want them to have the trip that they want to have, the ideal experience. So, yeah, it's a lot of correspondence.
Okay, so let's just try this out then. I want to do a bit of trekking, maybe I want to see some stunning ancient history. I want to go somewhere I've not really been before, somewhere that perhaps is a slightly unusual destination. What kind of options would I have?
I think it really depends on what time of year. Here's the start of year. When can you travel? Do you have fixed dates, certain times of the year, or have you got total flexibility?
So, presumably the most flexible time of the year would be when?
Especially with South America, if you can only travel November to, let's say, January, then I point you either to the southern Chile and Argentina, Patagonia in the south, which is landscape-wise, stunningly beautiful. But if that's the only time you could travel and you're interested in your ancient cultures, I'd probably push you up to your Central America, your Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, all that area there. Unfortunately, because January, February coincides with the rainy season in Peru, it's not a great time to visit Machu Picchu and all the Inca trails. So, as you say, if you've got total flexibility, and if you wanted to do Machu Picchu, the Inca Trail, one of these treks, then you're limited between April and October, November.
Okay, so if I was looking to do, let's say I was interested in Guatemala or the north, really, but didn't really fancy completely independent travel, presumably you would help me with trekking guides and that kind of thing?
No, exactly that. We would generally we put together these fully tailored trips where international flights, you'd have you arrived, you'd be met, you'd be driven to your hotels, you'd have 3 nights there. Where you want dependence, we'll leave you totally free, but with a long list of suggestions, recommendations. But where you want, a trekking guide or a guided tour, or specific interest, then we'd organise for someone to come and meet you and take you off for the day.
So if I was, let's say, able to pick 3 weeks or something like that, I could spend some of that time completely on my own, wandering around, and then hook up with your guides or your support staff when I needed it.
No, that's true. What I'd say is there are generally some countries where if you have 3 weeks, it's important to get it exactly right, bearing in mind the distances you're travelling. So if it was a Central American country, I would probably say that's absolutely fine for you to be independent, but I'd still be happy to actually put a structure in place and have the hotels booked for you, all the transfers and the flights. But when you arrive in these places, then you're completely free to just, during the day, wander around, potter, do what you want to do.
Okay, now Patagonia and some of the other places you mentioned are well established, but there must be some real hidden gems that people haven't really explored properly yet.
Yeah, and to be totally honest with you, I'd rave about Colombia. I mean, Colombia has the worst press in the world. It's had a troubled past, but now it's perhaps the most up-and-coming tourist destination of all the Americas, and it's got everything from ancient ruins, pre-Columbian cultures. It's got stunning colonial cities like Cartagena. It's got beaches, wildlife. It's got absolutely everything. And again, it's slowly being discovered now. So that for me is a hidden gem.
For a lot of people, a kind of exploration of the Amazon will be almost an ultimate travel experience. What kind of options would you have there if you really wanted to explore the Amazon and get a real feel for it?
The great thing about the Amazon, it just stretches all the way from Colombia south through, Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador, all the way down. And I think the options are either staying in a jungle lodge for 3 or 4 nights, however long that you have, or if you want more of a traditional Amazonian experience, you can take a river cruise, albeit from Manaus in northern Brazil or Iquitos in northern Peru.
Now, I guess with the tailor-made holidays, you can spend as little or as much as you want to, really, and that's part of the discussion that you'd have with people when they're looking at options.
No, that's right. Obviously, we generally specialise in all accommodation from 3-star up to your 5-star. So there's obviously a huge spread depending on what level of accommodation, what budget you have in mind. I think traditionally that most people have thought that tailor-made companies are always going to be that bit more expensive than group tours. But to be honest, things are changing a lot. So to be honest, it is. It's a lot more economical in many ways than people perhaps perceive it to be, and especially if you are looking at 3-star, a slightly cheaper option, there are destinations, there are ways forward. And
of course, the planning means that you can cut out a lot of the stuff you're not interested in. So you've really I guess you can make the most of your time this way. Make better use of it than you would do on a standard package holiday. No, exactly that. And this is where the correspondence before the trip is all important. We find out exactly what their interests are. And I think the key thing as well in South America is not to bite off more than you can chew and then make the most of each area. And especially when a lot of countries you have to look at the altitude and do it in exactly the right way. But yes, exactly that. And this is why all this correspondence is important to get, cut out the guff, if you like, the stuff that they're not so interested in, just focus on their key highlights. Okay, so I guess if we wanted to start looking at the options, we'd start on the website, I guess. Website, perfect idea. We also have a brochure. Otherwise, just to give us a call. And there's only 8 of us in the company. We've all travelled extensively in South America. And so we're ready just to help out or even just give sensible advice, really. Okay, so if I Googled Last Frontiers, Latin America, I'd get to you, yeah? Exactly.
You're listening to the award-winning UK Business Podcaster of the Year. This is the Outdoors Station.
Of course, more information can be found out on the lastfrontiers.com website if you're interested in travelling to Latin America. And I know my daughter Beth's been there and speaks very highly of the variety and certainly excellent value for money as regards the number of things that you can experience. Moving on, a number of photography friends of mine who have been doing it as a hobby have been sadly had to look at their career changes under the current sort of financial circumstances and have been doing much more work in the way of weddings and commercial work for people, which is encouraging to see that work is still there. When I was at the Focus show, there was one particular, in fact there was only one course, people running a course there from the Vale Imaging Group. And I spoke to the owner, James Howard, about the number of people that were actually changing careers slightly and moving more into photography or trying to make more money out of their photography, which is, you know, quite a popular hobby with outdoors people. So I thought I'd ask him that if the digital format, now it's well and truly here and higher, obviously a high enough quality for publishing work, whether he'd noticed any difference in the approach of photographers seeking to use his skills and be educated on his training courses.
Certainly the digital side of things has changed things enormously. People are buying cameras far more readily these days and trying to use them still like they used to in the olden days, getting the results that they used to in the olden days, which was never that good, but having an outlet and an ability to learn far easier these days than they used to. On film it was far more difficult to learn. With digital it's far easier.
Do you find there's, with the current sort of financial climate, there's any specific aspirations from these people wanting to learn as fast as possible so they can earn money from their hobby or their pastime?
Yes, certainly. We're seeing an awful lot of people who have been made either redundant or have just walked from their local jobs with an awful lot of money in their pockets from payoffs and things like that, who want to change their lifestyle, because photography is a completely different lifestyle to the normal 9-to-5 job, and people want to change. And we saw it in the last recession. An awful lot of people went creative from the banking industry, and we're seeing it again now, exactly the same.
Is there a common thing that you find with people that comes as a big surprise to them when they change from some sort of a different industry, like the banking industry or whatever, and they start looking at a creative industry? What's the area they struggle with the most, do you think?
Quite often, funnily enough, the business side of things. To be a creative and to be a businessman at the same time is very, very difficult, because you have to have two very separate hats on. And quite often they jump headfirst into the creative side of it and have great fun at doing it, but never actually really give much of a thought as to how they're going to make any money out of it. And so that is quite often where most people come unstuck, is they get 6 months down the line, they're penniless, and they still haven't really got anything business-wise to show for it.
With the courses that you run and sort of approaching all the different aspects, presumably there's landscapes photography right through to the wedding market, do people still have a misconception about which is the most lucrative market to enter in if they were going to start to try and earn some money?
Definitely. Everybody, for some reason outside of the landscape market, seems to think that you can actually make an enormous amount of money out of it, doing a passion that you love. I mean, anybody who wants to pay you to basically walk around the country taking beautiful photographs, it sounds ideal. Unfortunately, it is the hardest one to make money out of, and everybody who is actually in the landscape industry will readily tell you that.
So, on the other side of the scale, what is the most lucrative? Is it the wedding market?
Definitely. Wedding market is the most lucrative, and that's why it's also the most competitive. And it's one of the reasons is that it is one of the only industries in the photography market that is actually commissioned rather than speculative. We're commissioned easily a year and a half in advance, which means that the business side of it is far easier. You can project what you're going to be doing for a year in advance, as opposed to most other photography, which is purely speculative, including landscape photography. You shoot a print, you then have to sell it, and that becomes a speculative market, because until you actually do sell it, you don't get cash.
What about the library market? Do you encourage or support or help anybody get into that marketplace, and do you know of anybody that's actually made a living from that at all?
We do encourage people to get into the library market. It has changed quite considerably in the last 2 or 3 years. With the new online systems, it has become far more saturated with the average photographers, who just go out, take photos, and then just upload them in the vain hope of selling the prints. The problem is that this basically waters down all the good stuff that's out there. So it is becoming harder and harder to make a name and make a living for yourself. Saying that, there are still people who do make quite a living out of it, yes.
So, have you found over the last few years, and certainly I think you're one of the only, if not the only, training courses at a show like this, is it dawned on people that really they need to learn those skills which they've taken for granted? They think they're a good photographer because their Aunt Nellie says it's a lovely picture. They've suddenly realised that to up their game, to get to a level which is going to be consistent and of interest to potential publishers in whatever format that may be, that they really do need to learn the craft.
Yes, definitely, and certainly the digital side of things has not helped that score at all, because digital does make people a little bit more lazy about their photography, and it is dawning on people now at last, after several years, that they do have to go back to grassroots and learn properly. And that's where we come in, because we do teach from the grassroots up. Proper exposure theory, proper photography that was taught in the olden days on film. The only difference now is that it's a little bit easier and cheaper to learn because you don't have the material costs. The training is still actually exactly the same as we used to do 10 years ago.
So in those 10 years then, have you has there been a sea change as regards the age of people that are approaching you? Are they sort of getting older or younger at all?
Funnily enough, no. We get pretty much all walks of life. My students that come to do the assisting courses quite often are anything from 15 upwards, and the oldest we had was last year was about 75, who came to learn how to do wedding photography because he wanted to supplant his income from his pension.
The landscape photography you were saying earlier on, in actual fact you probably use large format cameras rather than digital, although I'm sure digital comes into it as well. Taking people who are currently using digital and just like get used to digital, taking them back to using film, that must be an interesting process.
It certainly is. It opens their horizons to what real photography actually is. They are closeted in this world of digital neatness where they just press a button and it all gets done for them, and they suddenly have to take huge steps back to learn the trade, again from the grassroots up. Learning large format is not something to be taken lightheartedly. It is an incredibly tough discipline, and you have to learn absolutely from the ground up. And a lot of them do find it very, very difficult, because what they thought was actually photography, what they thought was their skills that they're supposed to learn, are actually very, very minimal compared to what they really have to learn.
So for people who are interested in finding out more about your courses, tell me again the range of courses and where they can find out more, if you would.
Our website is www.valetraining.com, that's VALE, and we offer a range of courses. Most of the set courses are around wedding photography in particular, because we feel it's one of the hardest subjects to master. If you can master wedding photography, you can master just about anything. But we also do an awful lot of private training, especially in the large format and the landscape and fine arts markets. But because these are such specialist courses, they tend to be done on a one-to-one private basis, because everybody is at a different level in their photography, and what we need to do is find out what that level is and work from that. Working in a group for landscape photography is very, very difficult.
One final question I would like to ask you, actually. I mean, having a stand of this size and this prominence in the show isn't obviously, I know from my own experience, a cheap pastime. Has it been, a good show for you?
Certainly, the proof will be in the pudding, but we're hoping it will be a very, very good show. Having launched the franchise this year, this is the main launch at Focus, and our idea was to basically stamp our position in the market, and we hope we've done that already.
If you have any feedback, questions or suggestions, why not drop us a line either on Facebook or directly to our email address, info@theoutdoorstation.co.uk.
The home of UK-based audio and video podcasts for outdoors people everywhere.
If you're looking for more information about any of the training courses that James was talking about, Google Vale Imaging Group, and I'm sure you'll get the results coming up there to follow up. But very interesting, and certainly I think there's plenty there, as he was talking about the landscape photography and so on, that might interest people. Anyway, moving on to our European correspondent, the incredibly efficient German Roman Ackel, and the man that manages to do podcasts, blogs, photos, and more. He's even got a fantastic sense of humour for a German. So thank you, Roman, for your contributions, which will be coming over forthcoming podcasts that we compile. In this particular case, he speaks to Carol Macdermot from Lightwave, a brand that we know fairly well in the UK as being solid, reliable manufacturers of great products, rucksacks in particular, and also excellent range of tents. Now, he's produced a new backpack, which was on display at Friedrichshafen, a lightweight backpack, and one that Roman was very interested in, as he's a lightweight enthusiast himself. So he asked Carol how he came to design that one, which was even lighter than others in his range.
Well, we have a range of rucksacks called the Wild Trek, which comes in 55 and 60 litre sizes, that are really designed for the commercial sort of market, with lots of features that most people sort of seem to require these days. But what I really want to do from the kind of product that I would use for trekking, and this is multi-day trekking for 3, 5 to 7 days, is a rucksack that was lighter and had less features, so it was basically simpler. So effectively it is what I would call a stripped down Wild Trek. It doesn't have the base compartment, doesn't have the hydration system, doesn't have the compression straps on the side, although it does have a compression mechanism. But fundamentally, it's just designed to carry a heavy load, so 15 to 18 kilograms, but be fundamentally with a great deal of comfort, but be very light.
So I see that you use a mixture of traditional stitching plus ultrasonic welding. How does it work so far with your packs? Is the ultrasonic welding as strong as the traditional stitching?
Well, we've been using this construction technique for 2 years now, and we've never had a single problem or failure or blowout with it. But in fact, the technique has been in fact in use for about 5 to 7 years with some other brands. Certainly I would not venture down this route if it did not have a pretty good track history. And in this respect, I'm actually very conservative. Lightwave doesn't go out to be a leading edge mountaineering type of brand or product. It's a fairly conservative brand, and it's just got to be stuff that works, and I'm not going to take a risk on those kind of things without unproven technology, basically.
So you mentioned that the new one, the Ultra Hike, doesn't include a hydration system option, so it would leave you to carry some platypus type of bottles or other bottles in the side pockets. So what is the capacity of the side pockets, and could you easily grab your platypus or similar bottle for rehydration?
Yes. Well, first of all, I think I personally don't use hydration systems, and at the end of the day I design products pretty much how I would use them, which doesn't make it the right product or the best product for everybody. But there are a lot of people who don't use hydration systems. In fact, I hardly see anybody using a hydration system. I just prefer to walk and stop for a drink and take in the view in the say time and sit down and just do that on a regular basis rather than drinking on the move. The side pockets should take a 750 millimetre bottle quite comfortably. In fact, you can get a 1 litre or even a 1.5 litre in the bottle in the side pockets, but you may have to just loop one of the compression cords over the top just to stop it from falling out. But you can put a pretty big bottle in there, actually.
Well, the bottle, whatever you use, is still reachable while you're wearing the pack, or do you need to stop and then take the bottle out to take a drink?
I can reach it, but I do think you have to be reasonably flexible. I think there'll be some people who couldn't.
Okay, well, something to try on then. So, in terms of features, you mentioned the side compression system. What other features does the pack have?
A top pocket. That's it.
All right. in terms of let's say the carrying system, is there anything special you would like to mention?
Well, yes. This is basically all our rucksacks, regardless of whether it's a lightweight model or fully featured model. We fundamentally stick to two basic principles. One is keep the load as close as possible to the back. So we don't use any of these airflow type systems at all, because in fact, if you're going to be carrying 15 kilograms, it is much less effort for the body to keep that load as close as possible to the back. And in any respect, I would perspire carrying nothing, even without carrying a rucksack up the hill. Walking up a hill, I would perspire, so I don't really believe you achieve anything with an airflow system. Secondly, we also not only keeping the load close to the body, but we also go for a lot of body contact, because in fact, load is pressure over area. The more you spread the load over an area or a larger area, the less pressure point you have. And this is quite contrary again to what I see in a lot of backpack design. We're getting smaller and smaller amounts of body contact, which is not only less stable, but also results in large chunks of foam having to be put there to try and reduce the pressure points, which actually doesn't work, because it doesn't matter how much foam you have on 1 square inch. If that's where the load is going through, then that's how much load is ultimately going to be, and the foam just going to compress more quickly. So we spread the load over as much as close as possible, over as large an area as possible, get it close to the body, and it's mechanically more efficient and also very much more stable if you're quite a fast walker or walking over rough terrain where you're having to jump across streams or stumbling across rocky terrain, things like that.
All right. So, and if if people prefer that kind of airflow system, would tell you, but you tend to overheat using such a system, when everything is so close in contact with your back. What would you reply?
I disagree. I think I don't think the body overheats on the back. The back's not really doing the work. The muscles that are doing the work are the legs, and these are the parts that get hot. If you're overheating in the back, then you're exercising your back muscles too much, which again implies that you've not got a rucksack either well fitted, or you're not getting enough. The rucksack's not particularly stable on your back, but really you should be overheating on the back because those muscles aren't really working.
So as you said, it's kind of in some sense a traditional type of backpack because it has a top pocket or top lid. Would you ever consider, removing that top pocket and replace it with a roll top closure?
I'm not sure under Lightwave I would. We in fact do have exactly such a product in our other brand, Crux, which is oriented at really mountaineering specifically, and we do have a product like that, which has its uses. I don't really see any real benefit over a roll top over a conventional lid. I think a conventional lid is easier to clip and unclip, and it is certainly easier to put a pocket into. Putting a pocket into a roll top, which we have done, is quite complicated and not as accessible either, really. So under Lightwave, probably not.
Okay, all right. In terms of end customer, because this is a pretty lightweight backpack on its own, so what do you see as your target audience?
Well, I always find target audience is difficult because I think at the end of the day, if you need to carry something, there are a lot of different ways you can carry it, and if you've got a bag with 2 straps you can carry over your back, then fundamentally any rucksack with 2 straps will do the job. With the ultra hike, what we're trying to achieve really is something that is just a very, very efficient rucksack in terms of carrying a reasonably heavy load. So if you're having to carry a lot of food and water, for example, and the way to really achieve lightweight products is by keeping it very simple, and that means don't have lots of features on it, because these are effectively what add the weight. You can lose a little bit of weight by using extremely lightweight fabrics, but the amount of weight saving you gain isn't really very significant, and you end up with a rucksack that's in most cases less durable. There are some quite tough lightweight fabrics, so I won't say all of them, as Spectra for example, but you also actually end up with a rucksack that doesn't really have any body to it, and actually it's often quite difficult just simply to pack properly. I find rucksacks that kind of flop around on your back quite irritating. With the kind of weight of fabrics we use, the rucksacks don't do that. It just feels more comfortable. It's part of the comfort package, really.
Well, Thank you very much, Carol, for that introduction of your new backpack. And when will finally that pack be available for the public in the UK?
It will be available roughly March, April 2010, and the retail price was £120.
Of course, Lightwave can be found very easily on the internet, and I'm sure you can find more information about the 2010 products there. My thanks to Roman for the interview, and he's done a variety of others from Friedrichshafen, which we'll be releasing very shortly. Roman also is the owner and producer of the most phenomenally interesting and informative and detailed and expansive blog in relation to lightweight backpacking, and I really must ask you to pop over to his blog spot and have a look at that, because you won't spend 5 minutes or 10 minutes reading it, you will spend hours, and there is a wealth of material there which the super efficient Roman has managed to compile. So his web address is Lighthiker, L-I-G-H-T, lighthiker.wordpress.com, and you'll see pictures and lots of notes about a whole variety of products that he saw at Friedrichshafen that impressed him, and as I say, some of which he's recorded for us. Now, talking of other thanks, I must almost thank Andy Howell and Shirley Worrell as well for their contributions that they made to the 2009 TGO series, which has been obviously enjoyed by many people. And if you want to read more about their particular lightweight or their travelling or their backpacking experiences, you can find out more about Andy Howell at literally andyhowell.info. That's HOWELL. andyhowell.info, and Shirley at pwiglet.com, and that's PWIGLET.com, and you can see a whole range of their experiences and trips and equipment and so on there. So there's a lot going on in the new media world. I seem to be doing the sort of the audio and some of the video side of it. There are many other people doing it as well, but these are probably the four most well-known, or three most well-known bloggers, and they're all contributing to the content of these range of programs. So I must give them a huge thanks for that. Well, thanks very much everybody for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you like the new sort of feel and sound that we're producing. And we are about to, in fact, I'm about to go off with Andy this weekend for another big day out, and we've got a handful of new equipment to test from the forthcoming 2010 ranges from certain suppliers. Andy's got an exciting new lightweight tent he wants to talk about, and no doubt we both want to chill out over our wood-burning stoves and just watch the sun go down, hopefully without too much rain, as I say, it's not supposed to be a barbecue summer after all, is it? Anyway, until next time, folks, take care, enjoy the summer while we've got it, and remember to get out more. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To hear more from our extensive free library, please visit the website at theoutdoorstation.co.uk.
You can now follow The Outdoor Station on Facebook, where we chat about each program we produce, answer questions, and discuss future productions. Why not join us there?
This podcast is produced and hosted by theoutdoorstation.co.uk.